Hi everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Birchall here. Welcome to my channel. Today an art journal tutorial where we are going to apply the KISS principle. That means keeping it super simple. This one is great for beginners. It is also, we are starting with a page that I broke in the Break the Blank page videos. This one we stamped with gel medium. So it gave us this kind of embossed resist look that I painted green. And you can click on the iCard to see me doing that with gel medium. It's a great technique. So I have green on here and not a big fan of green, but I love greens with blues. So I grabbed this coffee filter that I had painted. I'd used leftover paint and I'm just ripping up the coffee filter. I have some gel print there that I'm kind of auditioning, but I'm ripping it up and I'm just going to apply it onto my background. This is going to break up the stamp. The stamp was square, and so I got those hard edges, which I want to get rid of. So I'm going to break those up. I'm also going to incorporate another color into my color scheme. And I know that blues and greens look really good together. They're close to each other on the color wheel. So I'm just playing with the basic orientation. Then I'm going to grab my fluid matte medium. This is Liquitex brand, and I'm going to apply it underneath and on top of the coffee filter. If you've never put paint on a coffee filter and used it to collage with, give it a try. It gives amazing texture, the colors, the paint, the way the paint goes in it, it just is quite amazing. And one of my favorite collage papers. So I'm just building up layers. When I collage overlap, you get more texture. So I'm adding color, I'm adding texture, I'm adding shapes, patterns to my background. I like using the fluid matte medium. Here, I find that it dries faster than the gel matte, but if that's what you have, that's what you can use. You can also use Mod Podge, Decoupage, whatever adhesive you have. But if you're looking to try something new, I can recommend the Liquitex Fluid Matte Medium. Now, when you break a page, sometimes a lot of what you've done shows up in the end product. That, spoiler alert, that's not going to happen here, but it did give the basis for it. It led me to the next layer, the color. It led me to stamping the words that I have, because I've got some script, some words on there from the gel medium stamping. And now I'm taking this sparkly motif stamp, and it has 4 words: dream, inspire, love. Not sure what the last one is. And I'm just stamping them both ways. Again, I don't know which way I'm going to end up using this. And I'm stamping with archival ink because it is permanent. The links to this stamp set, the stencil I used, the products I used are in the description box. And there are coupon codes too. This stencil is called Ginkgo Leaves, and I chose it because of the green, the color scheme. And I thought that would be nice. So I am going to layer this stencil. So I'm going to use the same stencil using 2 colors. So I'm using white here for a very faded kind of group. And then I'm going to come back and stencil with the same stencil, same process with Prussian blue, which is one of my favorite colors, but a dark navyish blue. I'm putting some of the stenciling over the edges. I'm overlapping them. So once that's dry, now I'm coming back with the Prussian blue. And I'm applying this with a makeup sponge. These are makeup sponges that I get from the dollar store. And I wash them and I reuse them multiple times. I'm turning the stencil so the leaves are going up, down. Turning the page, seeing where there's empty spots. My goal here is to just get layers. With the words that I have there, inspire, dream, love, the ginkgo leaves, it's very Zen-like, and that's going to lead me to the next choice. When you're doing mixed media, when you're doing art journaling, the layers, you want little bits of every layer to show. But the trouble is you can't fall in love with just the one layer. And here's a close-up of this wonderful background that would be good for a variety of different projects. So I searched through some of my things and I had different ideas for the focal image. But I had that sparkly motif stamp set that I used for the words, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to stamp this Mandela-like stamp and use that as a focal image. Now I'm using archival ink. Now I've slowed this part down. I struggle a little bit with stamping, and here's what I've learned. Keep your stamp pad juicy. So buy the re-inker. Stamp it as you see me doing here. I find that gives me the best coverage, taking the stamp pad and pressing in. Put a mouse pad underneath when you're stamping. That's what you see, that little blue strip there. Press the center. Don't rush in lifting this off. Press, give it some time for the ink transfer. And voila. And when I'm stamping, I've got the ink out, I've got the ink pads out, everything's ready to go. I typically do more stamping than what I'm going to need. And that way I have something in my stash, and I will store the excess stamps that I've made in with my stamp set in those plastic pouches. Or sometimes they just stay in a bin. It's kind of my possibility bin. So I'm really happy with that, and all those things have helped me get some good stamping. And especially when it's a focal image, you want to have a better stamped image. Now I'm just cutting a white border around it, that's so it stands off a little bit more on the background. I cut out 3 of them, and then I went through my sentiment packs. In sentiment pack number 2, which are good all-purpose quotes, and I'm playing with a couple different ones that I think are very Zen-like, kind of go with the feel of the page that I've created, or the page that's evolved. I decided to go back to my original plan. Dreams don't work unless you do. And I try to make a wave so your eyes go across the page, and I arrange my focal images with that. and I kind of bubble cut around the words. Now that everything, I've decided where it is, I'm coming in with my fluid matte medium and gluing everything down. Coat of matte medium underneath and matte medium on top. You want to make sure that the archival ink is completely dry, because even though it's permanent, you've got to give it time to dry so it doesn't move or smudge. My sentiment packs are available at ninniesnapkins.com. There is a link and coupon code in the description box. She also carries many of the TCW stencils that I use in my videos, as well as this sparkly motif stamp. I'm liking the black and white of my focal image, but I want to add a little bit of color. And I know I've used this yellow green in the background, and I'm just painting some, very little, of this stamped image with that green. And that's just making it work. I grab a stylus, I'm dipping it into that green paint and adding details where there are dots. Remember, the stamped image is yours to do whatever you wish to. You can add as little or as much color. And just that little bit of color just bumps it up enough. Now, some of those words, because the theme is kind of dreams, I grabbed that dream stamp from the sparkly motif stamp and I stamped some more with black. And then I thought, I want to add some gold. So I grabbed some gold paint and I stamp with the acrylic paint the word dream. There was some gold in that coffee filter that I collaged down, and this just makes it all work together. I also splatter with gold in a little bit. So again, all these elements work together. Now I want to do some shading around my focal image. That is because I want that focal image to stand off from the background. I'm using the floating acrylic technique. I'll put a link to that video where I teach it, how to do it. It's a great technique to use for shading and highlighting using acrylic paint, which when it's dry will be permanent. So you're not going to have to worry about it reactivating, which you do if you're shading using a Stabilo All pencil or watercolor pencil. I also use that floating acrylic technique, shading technique, to go around the outside, shade or edge the page. I grab my Posca paint pen, black, and I'm outlining my words. My sentiment packs, you are able to blow them up, shrink them so they fit whatever size project you're using. You can use them as they are. You can cut them apart like I did here. There's a multitude of things you can do with them. You don't have to use them just as I present them. I'm also doing some line work around the outside of the page. It's a little detail, but it all adds to your finished project. And here's the gold paint that I have mixed with water, and I'm going to splatter using my fan brush. If you like this page, give it a try. Use what you have. Find elements that are similar to what I have and create your own page. Now let's do a recap of this page. This page was broken by stamping with gel medium. That gave me the color scheme and gave me the theme. I started by collaging coffee filters that I had colored. I'm using an analogous color scheme. That means they're next to each other on the color wheel, the blues and greens. I did some stamping and some stenciling. I layered that same stencil using a dark and a light to give that layered effect that I love creating. I added some contrast by using a black and white stamped focal image. I added a sentiment to the page. I bubble cut around it. I added some more stamping with a stamp I've already used, but with acrylic paint this time. I shaded my focal image and edged the page with black acrylic paint, and I splattered the whole page with gold. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you give this a try using what you have in your stash. Until next time, go get creative.